Imagine a sound you can't quite hear with your ears, but you feel it, like deep down, maybe in your bones, even your teeth.
Yeah, this low, persistent droning noise.
Exactly. And it might make you feel anxious, maybe sick,
Yeah.
and honestly make you question what's real. That's the really unsettling idea we're diving into today.
We are talking about the Taos Hum. It's this phenomenon people have reported for decades, mainly in and around Taos, New Mexico.
And how do people describe it? It's not just a sound, is it?
No, not really. It's often described as like a deep, pulsating hum that you feel almost as much as you hear. Sometimes people say it feels like it's vibrating right inside them.
Wow. And what makes it so baffling, so hard to pin down?
Well, it's incredibly elusive. It seems to be localized. The intensity varies a lot. And maybe the weirdest part, not everyone can even perceive it.
Right. And I read it's often more noticeable indoors, like it follows you home.
That's often reported, yeah.
Yeah.
And its intensity can change, sometimes fading out, then suddenly spiking back up.
Which must be pretty startling, I imagine. And people report actual physical symptoms from this.
They do. Things like headaches, nausea, dizziness, sometimes just intense fatigue. It definitely raises fears, Could this noise actually be harmful?
That concern seems totally justified. And despite all the attention, all the investigations, still no definitive source.
No, none that everyone agrees on anyway. Plenty of theories, which we'll get into, but no concrete single source has been nailed down. And that, of course, just makes the mystery deeper.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive then. We're going to sift through the research, the articles, all the stories about the Tapas Hum.
Yeah, try and pull out the really important stuff, the key insights, give you a kind of shortcut to getting up to speed on this really perplexing phenomenon.
We'll share some surprising facts, hopefully have a little fun with it, maybe spark some aha moments for you along the way.
We'll track it from its historical roots, look at the science that tried to figure it out, explore all those different theories.
Its impact on the community, how it talks up in
Yep.
pop culture, the whole picture.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's really get into what makes this hum so weird. What are those distinct characteristics?
Well, the low-frequency nature is key. It's persistent, kind of gets under your skin, but it's really hard to locate with standard equipment.
Like trying to find where a foghorn is coming from in thick fog?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
People describe it differently, too, like a distant diesel engine
Mhm.
or a constant buzz, maybe a grinding noise.
And it fluctuates, just comes and goes, or gets louder and softer.
It can, yeah. Suddenly spike in intensity,
Mm.
which is definitely unsettling for people experiencing it. And then there's that selective hearing aspect.
Right, where it seems to depend on age or how sensitive someone's hearing is, maybe even psychological stuff.
Exactly. All those factors seem to play a role in who hears it and how intensely. It adds this whole other layer of complexity for anyone trying to study it.
So it's subjective in a way. That must make it a nightmare for scientists. When did people first start reporting this anyway? Is it recent?
Oh, no, not at all. The earliest accounts, or things that sound like it, go way back, late 19th, early 20th century.
Really? What did they say back then?
Residents described these low, persistent vibrations, just kind of rippling through the town. Descriptions varied then, too. Sometimes a deep rumble, like far-off thunder. Other times more like a high-pitched drone.
And I bet people just dismissed it back then.
Often, yeah. Put it down to natural stuff, maybe early industrial noise. But the reports were consistent enough over time that people started paying more attention.
And I saw mentions that some early accounts linked it to other weird stuff, like shadows or flickering lights. Sounds like classic local legend material.
It definitely took on that quality. And you can see why its elusiveness would attract, well, paranormal enthusiasts.
The idea of infrasound comes up a lot, right? Sound you feel more than hear.
Absolutely. That's a big theory, these low-frequency waves potentially causing physical unease or weird sensations. And the media certainly jumped on it.
Oh, I bet. Newspapers, radio, TV.
Yeah, they played a huge role. Turned it from this quirky local thing into a, global mystery, often sensationalizing it, blurring fact and fiction.
Linking it to secret government stuff or aliens, probably.
All of the above. And that's where local folklore, the strange lights people sometimes see out there, ghost stories, kind of got mixed in with the media hype.
It's like the perfect storm for creating a modern myth.
Precisely. That mix of local stories and media amplification really cemented the Hum's reputation as something unknown.
Okay, let's talk about Taos itself, the place. How does that unique landscape, the mountains and mesas, play into this?
Oh, hugely. Taos has this incredibly rugged terrain. Big mountains, wide mesas, deep valleys, canyons.
Beautiful, but maybe acoustically weird.
Exactly. Those natural features can act like massive amplifiers or, conversely, sound barriers. They create echoes, stretch sounds out, distort them into these kind of haunting refrains.
Give me an example.
Well, think about how a whisper, or even just footsteps, can echo in a canyon. It might sound like it's coming from deep inside the earth, right? The landscape there is basically a giant natural sound stage for something like the hum.
That's fascinating. So the land itself could be messing with the sound. What about what's under the ground? Geological stuff.
Yeah, that's another really important angle. You've got mineral deposits, things like sulfur or salt, that can make subtle noises as they shift or react with moisture.
And fault lines? Taos is near the Rio Grande Rift, isn't it? That's active.
Very active, geologically speaking. Even minor shifts along those fault lines create micro vibrations, tiny rumbles that maybe only some people or equipment could pick up.
And caves, could they act like, I don't know, giant speakers?
In a way, yeah. Large underground cavities can definitely act as natural resonators. They can amplify even tiny movements or sounds. There's even this thing called cave hum, which can be caused by underground water flowing through rock formations.
Like a very subtle, natural drone.
Wow. So the ground itself could be humming. What about the air, the climate? Does weather affect it?
Absolutely. Local climate is a huge factor in how sound travels anywhere. Temperature is a big one.
How so?
Well, think about cooler nights. The air is denser, so sound can travel farther. A faint, distant hum might seem louder, more persistent.
Okay.
And rapid temperature changes can create what's called a temperature inversion, where a layer of warm air traps cooler air and sound waves near the ground. That can make sounds sharper or cause weird echoes.
And wind.
Wind can carry sounds in unexpected directions, obviously, or scatter them. And don't forget, Taos is high altitude, it's got dry air, and these inversions happen. It creates this unique acoustic environment where low-frequency sounds could potentially travel really, really far.
So it's like the perfect place for a mysterious sound to thrive, almost. The
Yep.
environment is practically helping it along.
You could definitely argue that, yeah. The conditions are ripe. So, given how weird this all is, scientists must have tried to figure it out early on. What did those first investigations look like? Were they difficult?
Oh, incredibly difficult. Especially back then, the technology was pretty limited. We're talking basic microphones, maybe some radio or electromagnetic measurements.
And they probably assumed it was something normal?
Right. The initial assumption was usually, okay, it's either natural geology or it's human-made, like machinery somewhere. But those early attempts, the data was often really ambiguous,
So they didn't find much.
or what they found didn't point clearly anywhere. The hum often got dismissed as just, background noise, interference, not a real phenomenon worth serious study.
It sounds like the hum itself was working against them, being so inconsistent.
That's a perfect way to put it. Its unpredictability was, and still is, a massive hurdle. It shows up, it disappears, it changes frequency, it seems sensitive to weather, maybe seismic activity, even just local human activity.
It's like trying to study a ghost that only appears randomly.
Exactly. It makes it almost impossible to form a stable hypothesis or create a reliable model.
Right.
And then you add the fact that not everyone hears it the same way or at all. It just complicates everything.
Okay, fast forward to now. How are modern approaches different? What kind of high-tech gear are they using?
Well, now you've got much more sophisticated tools, highly sensitive acoustic sensors, trying to pick up sounds outside the normal human range, infrasound or ultrasound. Electromagnetic detectors looking for weird field fluctuations.
Thermal imaging, infrared. What would that show?
The idea is to visualize maybe hidden energy sources or disturbances that aren't visible. And things like LiDAR, basically laser mapping, can create super detailed 3D maps of an area to track tiny ground movements over time.
But even with all that tech, it's still hard.
Oh, yeah. The biggest challenge is often just filtering out the noise, differentiating some potentially real anomalous signal from all the false positives you get from, everyday electrical devices, HVAC systems, even drafts. It's a needle in a humming haystack.
I like that, humming haystack. What about citizen science? Are regular people helping collect data now?
Yeah, that's actually a really exciting development. You have enthusiasts using smartphone apps, sometimes specialized sensors, to record sounds and conditions in lots of different places.
So crowdsourcing the data collection?
Kind of, yeah. It massively broadens the scope,
Yeah.
helps spot potential patterns over a wider area than a small research team could manage. It democratizes the research.
Does it work? Is the data good?
It can be, but you need really clear, standardized procedures so everyone's collecting comparable data. That's the challenge there, ensuring reliability, but it's definitely adding a lot more information to the pot.
So, with all this modern tech, all these people looking, have we finally cracked it? Do we know what the Taos hum is?
Honestly, the results are still largely inconclusive. Many questions are still wide open.
Still, after all this time, still. There are findings that hint at something genuinely strange. Unexplained lights, weird recordings, objects moving in some accounts. But definitive, scientifically accepted conclusions. They're usually pretty cautious, pretty provisional.
So it's not just that we don't have the answer. It's like the phenomenon itself resists easy answers.
That's a really insightful way to put it. There's this constant tension between what science can measure and what people are actually profoundly experiencing. It forces us to admit, maybe, that some things just don't fit neatly into our current boxes.
Okay, so if there's no single smoking gun, what are the main theories? Let's start with the more down-to-earth ones, acoustic, environmental stuff.
Right, so one big category is just the noise of modern life. Low frequency vibrations from factories, traffic, HVAC systems, and large buildings, that kind of thing. Stuff that can travel surprisingly far.
And power lines, electrical equipment, definitely. Electromagnetic interference, or EMI, from power lines, transformers, substations, that's another potential source. It might not create audible sound directly, but it could potentially cause physical sensations or affect how sensitive people perceive sound.
And natural sounds. Could it just be wind or animals?
It's possible. Wildlife, wind whistling through canyons, water moving underground,
Yeah.
these can all create low-level sounds. And remember how the landscape can amplify things? Those geographic features, caves or valleys, could be acting like natural resonators for sounds originating somewhere else.
Okay, that covers a lot of the, let's say, conventional ground. What about the more speculative ideas, electromagnetic technological theories?
Yeah, this is where you get into the more out there territory, often involving conspiracy theories.
Like secret military projects.
Exactly. The idea that the hum could be a byproduct or even the intended effect of some kind of advanced, perhaps secret, government or military technology,
Well,
maybe sonic weapons research, advanced radar systems, things designed to be hidden.
or underground bases. That one comes up a lot with mysteries like this.
It does. Hypotheses about classified underground facilities, maybe doing experimental work, quantum tech, particle accelerators, who knows? And perhaps emissions or vibrations are somehow leaking out and creating this effect.
It taps into that whole hidden world idea, doesn't it? Things happening beneath the surface we don't know about.
It absolutely does.
Beyond the physical or technological, what about the human mind? How much of this could be psychological?
That's a really crucial and often controversial part of the puzzle. Psychological perspectives look at how our own internal state can influence perception.
Like stress making you notice things more.
Precisely. Stress, exhaustion, even just focused expectation can amplify sensations. If you're relaxed, you might ignore a faint background noise. If you're anxious or specifically listening for something weird, your brain might latch onto it and magnify it.
And conditions like tinnitus, ringing in the ears.
That's a major factor to consider. Tinnitus creates an internal humming or ringing sound. It's very easy for someone experiencing it, especially if they don't realize they have it, to mistake it for an external noise.
So your brain could literally be tricking you. And what about like suggestion, if everyone else is talking about a hum?
That's confirmation bias, yeah. If you expect to hear it, you're more likely to interpret ambiguous sounds as the hum, and cultural factors play a role too.
How so?
Well, if a culture has existing myths or folklore about strange sounds being linked to spirits or omens, people might be predisposed to interpret a weird hum through that supernatural lens.
And then there's that idea of mass hysteria, or what's the term?
Mass psychogenic illness, or sometimes collective anxiety. It's where shared fears and social cues within a group can lead people to genuinely experience similar physical sensations, even if the initial trigger was something mundane or even non-existent. The power of suggestion in a group setting.
The mind is powerful. Okay, shifting from theories to experience, what are people who hear the hum actually reporting? What's it like for them?
The personal accounts are really compelling and often share common themes. People talk about being woken up by it, this pulsing hum. Feelings of pressure in the ears are common.
Like on an airplane.
Sort of, yeah. Or just a general restless feeling, making it hard to sleep or concentrate. And the physical effects ringing ears, nausea, dizziness, those are reported quite often too.
And weird stuff with devices. Electronics going haywire.
Sometimes, yeah. Accounts of radios getting statusy, lights flickering, cameras malfunctioning when the hum seems strong, and consistently it's described as this deep, low sound that you feel as much as hear. That physical sensation seems key.
So it's not just annoying, it's physically intrusive for some people. How does that affect daily life for residents?
It really varies. For some, maybe it becomes a familiar background noise, almost a weird comfort, part of the place's unique character. For others, it's a constant source of distraction, anxiety, even paranoia. It can impact sleep, concentration, work, social life.
And visitors. Does it draw tourists?
Oh, absolutely. Taos has become a bit of a magnet for the curious because of the hum. People travel there hoping to experience it, hearing the whispers and stories. And often, they report their own strange sensations. It's definitely part of the town's allure now.
I bet local businesses have picked up on that. Hum-themed tours or something.
You bet. Entrepreneurs are definitely capitalizing on the mystery. You can find themed merchandise, special events, guided tours to supposed hotspots.
Do they bring EMF meters and stuff?
Sometimes, yeah. They often blend the local stories with some scientific theories, maybe do some basic readings, and the community response has evolved too. Initially, there were efforts to just figure it out, maybe debunk it. Now there seems to be more acceptance, even a kind of local pride in having this unique mystery.
So they've embraced it as part of their identity.
To some extent, yeah. You see community surveys about it, local groups investigating, educational campaigns. It's part of the Taos story now.
It really has become a living legend. Okay, let's dive into some of the more far-out alleged causes, the stuff from popular culture, conspiracy theories about government experiments.
Yeah, that's a big one. The idea that the hum is a side effect or maybe even the goal of secret government projects. Mind-controlled experiments come up, hidden underground bases, maybe testing alien tech they've recovered.
And the government's natural secrecy just feeds into that, right?
Absolutely. Lack of transparency around military research or unexplained aerial phenomena just fuels suspicion. Even small bits of declassified info can get spun into these elaborate theories about hidden technologies far beyond what the public knows.
It plays right into that feeling that there's stuff going on we're not being told. What about aliens? Is the hum ET's voicemail?
For some people, yes, that's a popular hypothesis. The sheer strangeness of the sound leads some to think it must be extraterrestrial. Maybe it's communication, maybe it's the sound of their craft.
Especially if it coincides with UFO sightings.
Exactly. People report hearing unusual humming, pulsing tones, sometimes metallic screeches around the same time they see strange lights or objects in the sky. That correlation strengthens the belief for many that these areas are maybe hotspots for alien activity, like cosmic crossroads.
Takes the mystery up a few notches. How do simple, everyday sounds morph into these big urban legends and myths then?
It's a fascinating process, really. You start with maybe a mundane sound, a distant factory, wind noise, weird plumbing in an old building. But then storytellers, or the media, pick it up.
And embellish it.
Right? Through repetition and retelling, the sound gets layered with mystery, maybe danger, maybe the supernatural. Digital platforms, viral videos, online forums, they amplify these stories incredibly quickly now.
And our brains just kind of fill in the gaps.
We have a natural tendency to do that, yeah. We want explanations. And when concrete evidence is missing, we often latch on to the most compelling, sometimes the most dramatic or scary ideas. We're wired for narrative.
We love a good story. So inevitably, does the paranormal angle come in? Ghosts and spirits making the hum.
Oh, absolutely. For people inclined towards paranormal explanations, a mysterious hum can easily be interpreted as spiritual activity.
Like a message from the other side.
Or maybe the sound itself is how entities manifest, or a byproduct of their energy. People often report feeling watched, or a sudden cold spot, or seeing flickering lights right when they hear the hum.
Which reinforces the ghostly connection for them.
Exactly. It leads to theories that spirits are using these sounds to communicate or transfer energy somehow.
Okay, there are so many layers here. Let's try to pull back a bit. How do we even begin to separate the potential reality from all this myth-making? What common myths about the hum can maybe be debunked?
Well, a key thing to remember is just how many seemingly weird hums do turn out to have mundane explanations. Industrial noise traveling in strange ways, natural sounds amplified by terrain, even internal physiological things like tinnitus.
So step one is rule out the ordinary.
Pretty much. And recognize how subjective sound perception is. Our mood, our focus, our expectations, they really can color what we think we're hearing. Sometimes the hum people report scientifically correlates perfectly with, say, traffic noise they just weren't consciously noticing before.
Okay, so if we encounter evidence or hear a story, how should we evaluate it objectively? What should you, the listener, look out for?
Critical thinking is key. Look at all the evidence, the scientific data, if any. The eyewitness accounts, the different theories, ask questions about how the data was collected. Was it rigorous?
And eyewitness accounts, they can be powerful, but tricky.
Very tricky. Memory is fallible. Suggestion plays a role. Look for corroboration. Do multiple independent witnesses report the same thing under similar conditions? And always ask, what are the simplest explanations first? Could this be natural? A misinterpretation? Could someone be faking it? Look for signs of manipulation in photos or videos.
It sounds like a balancing act. You need an open mind, but also skepticism. How do you strike that balance with something like the Taos Hum?
It's absolutely crucial. You need both. An open mind lets you consider new possibilities, maybe genuinely strange phenomena. That's where discovery happens. But skepticism is your filter. It protects you from jumping to unfounded conclusions or accepting flimsy evidence.
So be curious, but don't automatically believe everything.
Exactly. Approach new evidence with curiosity, but also have a kind of mental checklist. How credible is the source? Is there supporting evidence? What are my own biases here? Am I wanting this to be true? Seek other opinions. The goal isn't dismissal, it's understanding through careful inquiry.
And for paranormal enthusiasts specifically, how does bringing in more scientific rigor help their investigations? It seems like it could make them stronger.
It really does. It elevates the search from just collecting anecdotes to something more structured and potentially credible. Using scientific methods, even basic ones, helps minimize bias and increases the chance of reliable findings.
Like using EMF meters or thermometers properly.
Right. Using tools systematically can provide actual data to compare with the subjective experiences. It forces critical thinking, distinguishing a real anomaly from equipment malfunction or a natural fluctuation. And it encourages collaboration, maybe bringing in experts from other fields. It's about adding rigor to the exploration of the unknown.
This has been incredibly thorough. So wrapping things up, what's the final word on the Taos Hum? Where does this ongoing mystery stand?
Well, the bottom line is it remains a persistent, really multifaceted mystery. We've got all these theories, environmental, technological, psychological, paranormal, but still, no single definitive explanation has satisfied everyone or explained all aspects of the phenomena.
It's still location-specific, still selectively heard, still has that weird psychological impact.
Exactly. And its resistance to a clear scientific answer after all this time is in itself significant. It really highlights the limits of our current understanding, maybe even our methods.
It's become more than just a noise, hasn't it?
It really has. It's transformed into this powerful symbol of the unexplained. It represents that deep human curiosity about the edges of our knowledge, the boundaries of reason. And because it defies easy answers, it leaves this wide open space for imagination, speculation, and hopefully continued investigation.
It really makes you think. So here's a final thought for you listening. If the Taos Hum is this complex puzzle, geology, psychology, maybe hidden tech, maybe ancient lore, all mixed together, what does that say about our own perception of reality? What subtle hums, what quiet mysteries might be present in your own environment that you're overlooking just because no one's prompted you to listen closely?
And we really encourage you to approach mysteries like this, whether it's the Taos Hum or something closer to home, with that blend of curiosity, open-mindedness, but also rigorous inquiry. Maybe keep a journal if you notice something strange. Note the sounds, the time, the weather, how you felt. Sharing observations, even seemingly small ones, can sometimes be how these big puzzles eventually get pieced together.